You're listening to the Science of CX. My name is Steve Pappas. I'm known for my relentless pursuit of all things customer. Across my career, and also in my 6 startups, I've had to learn how to make decisions in business that customers really respond to. Let's spend some time together and help your business soar, grow, and accelerate. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Science of CX. Boy, have I got some great news for you. I know you've enjoyed listening to me talk and once in a while interview some exciting guests too, but I've got some great news. I have a new co-host now. So I'm going to introduce you to my new co-host. Her name is Angela Simpson. Angela's had 25 years of healthcare and health insurance experience and tons of experience in retail banking and even mortgage lending. Angela holds a degree in communications, and she's working on her master's right now. She's also a DNV certified ISO auditor, and she's managed home-based staff for 15 years and managed contact centers for 12 years. Angela's definitely got a passion for making sure employees have a great experience, they have the tools they need to succeed, but also she's got a passion for the customer, the patient, and the member to make sure that they have a great experience too. So everyone, please help me thank Angela for joining us as the co-host of the Science of CX.
Thank you, Steve. I'm so happy to join you.
Well, I'm sure we've got a lot to talk about because, we've known each other for many years, and we've always had great discussions around all of your years of expertise around running contact centers, setting them up, dealing with some very, very critical areas in healthcare, in health insurance, in hospital. So we're really gonna dig in, and we're gonna really get to know Angela over the course of the coming weeks. But one of the areas that we thought would be really appropriate to talk about in our first co-hosted episode was to talk about work from home. Many people have gone work from home now. Many companies have issued that order now, probably a month and a half to 2 months at least. So it's difficult to move entire departments and entire companies to work from home and make sure that they get set up quickly and properly and ergonomically, and make sure that folks are feeling engaged and they're performing and they're productive for the organization and they feel engaged and they feel part of a team. There are so many areas I'd like to tackle with you, Angela. So why don't we just get started in your experience, and we'll talk about, what I've had to do recently too. In your experience, how does that process begin to unfold itself? When the order comes, hopefully you're prepared for these things, as many of our customers have been in the past, as well as you have done in the past. But also, there's a business continuity plan in place that tells you how to do these things. But of course, in the recent months, everything had to be done so quickly. I'm wondering whether or not people could follow all of those procedures to the letter of the law and get them done right and make sure that they're taking care of their folks the same way. So maybe from your perspective, what does that process look like? And how crazy and frenetic does that process actually end up being?
Well, before we encountered the COVID-19 coronavirus exodus of 2020, I was in a process of sending staff home more at a one-at-a-time type of environment rather than trying to figure out how to send massive numbers of employees home at the same time. And I think that's where we had begun to lay the groundwork for what the technology needed to be for optimal work from home environments, we really had to reach out to our IT staff and talk to them about what could be done rapidly that might not be what we considered to be the optimal methodology for work from home, but that could support them. We also had to warn our staff that it wasn't going to be perfect for the first couple of days. We watched internet's carriers all over the country just not be able to support the number of employees that went from home so rapidly, especially from your larger organizations, that they weren't sending hundreds of employees home at a time. They were sending home tens of thousands of employees at a time. And I think that's where we had to get creative at looking at, maybe you didn't send your employees home anymore with a corporate PC and monitors, and you figured out what you could do virtually through various software applications that your company had in place but hadn't really launched large scale yet, to enable you to be able to send home large volumes of employees all at once, entire departments at once.
So this probably taxed not only management and at all levels, but it probably taxed the IT folks and the infrastructure folks to say, we've always kind of planned for the ability to do X. Now we have to do it X cubed, and we've got to go so much further with it to make it work. Let's keep our fingers crossed that it does work. I mean, wouldn't you say that was probably a big fear in many people's minds?
I think the biggest stressors were in IT and security, cybersecurity.
Yeah. I think that is that's an interesting point there too. Both were probably stressed beyond what they had planned for in this time. So, I guess people have started really rethinking some of the work from home processes and procedures, tools, technologies, but also there's the human factor. And I guess from what we talk about here on the Science of CX, it's about the experience. Maybe let's talk about how do you monitor performance and measure whether or not people that are working from home are really able to get the job done?
I think one of the beauties of running call centers is you're working with employees that are already accustomed to having every second of their day measured and managed. So whether they're working in the office next to you or they're working from home, their productivity really should not be impacted. And I think that was one of the things that I worked through very early on, probably 10 years ago when I started sending call center staff home, was getting the executive staff in my organization to realize that there was an opportunity to send employees home without any impact to their productivity in a negative manner, with such a positive impact to their performance because they were so much more comfortable in the home setting.
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation today with an executive in a very large financial services institution, and he was relaying a story to me of how a large group of their learning and development people, their trainers, the folks that actually do the in-class training, were changed over to now be HR people, and they're calling employees to make sure that they've got what they need. They understand what the procedures are. They are well aware of any benefits that they could take advantage of for work from home, whether it be a printer or a chair or a desk or a lamp or whatever it is, that they took hundreds and hundreds of people out of their learning group and now made them HR people. That is a big difference. I mean, I understand the call center people probably are measured and monitored almost every second of the day. But when you start taking people from other parts of a business and saying, over the next so many weeks, you're doing something completely new, out of your comfort zone, but we need you to step up and help out those that are working from home to be able to do a better job. So I guess it kind of runs the gambit on the probably no difference or slight difference affecting certain groups, but probably a huge difference when it comes to others.
I agree. I think a lot of it is knowing your employees, knowing what motivates them. You know, you'll have some employees that transition to the home setting and will appreciate not having the day-to-day distractions of others in the office around them. You'll have those that not having others around them actually causes the distraction. They don't know how to focus when they don't have that energy around them of all of their coworkers.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, now that you mention that, I think even myself. So if I internalize this a little bit, from a management perspective, I was so used to being able to walk into different departments, different cubicles, or different offices, spend a few minutes, not try to be interrupting folks, but just spend a few minutes and understand what's going on, understand how people are getting on and what have you. And I find that even I'm feeling a bit disconnected. If I'm really honest with myself, I feel like I'm a little disconnected too, and I find that I have to schedule time on Zoom or other platforms like Teams and what have you, that I've got to schedule time to do that, when it used to be I'd walk down the hall and I'd go office to office. I'd have my notes in my hand and say, hey, how's this project going? Hey, how is that deal coming along? Things like that. So I can imagine that there are different personality types and the way they like to work. And that's got to be a different way of motivation for folks. But how, as managers, do you figure out who is what type and how to then motivate at the personalization level to get the most out of that particular employee?
Well, this may sound like a basic answer, but the first thing I would say is ask the employee. Use that discussion as a way to engage them in creating the environment in which they want to work, instead of guessing at it yourself.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I think that's probably the underscore to a lot of this is more communication rather than less. It's you probably can't over communicate during times like this because people are feeling like islands out there. People are feeling somewhat disconnected now that they don't have that camaraderie. And I use the term camaraderie, and maybe there are other words for it, but they feed off each other. There is a level of emotion when there's a team working on something and they're all moving to the same direction and they succeed when they finish a project and they know that they've done a good job. It's a little bit different when you're catching up via a virtual video conference all the time, and it lacks a little bit of that team camaraderie. And I guess that's the term I'm putting to it now.
Camaraderie, interdependence, connectedness. I think it's a matter of when we schedule those meetings, we tend to focus more on just getting the meat of the meeting taken care of, and sometimes might forget to also take care of a little bit of time to socialize. And I think that's one of the things I know you've been doing with your teams that I appreciate, is taking that time to also make sure they're staying connected through having some fun together and figuring out new ways to do that in a virtual world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I've said it, on this podcast before. I mean, the day that we went work from home, that first day was a Monday. And for that first week and a half, I organized at 4:45 just for 15, 20, 25 minutes, however long people went. I organized fun time every night. But we also did another thing. We got together for coffee in the morning, virtual coffee. Everybody had their coffee, their tea, or their energy drink, or whatever it is that they had. And we got together for just 10, 15 minutes, had a cup of coffee with each other. Just, we'd shoot the breeze about the night before, or what they ate, or if it was, after the weekend, how was your weekend? Oh, did you do some workout in the backyard? Those types of things. And people started looking forward to all of this, and we've done every kind of game you can imagine, even to the point where I had downloaded the script from one of the first Flash Gordon radio programs in the 1930s, and I gave everybody a part. And in Zoom, we actually went from screen to screen, and people did their part. And then in our marketing department, I had somebody just edit it all together, added in some of the sound effects, and it was a lot of fun. It came out great.
I missed that.
For a Zoom radio program, if you will. But we've done all the Name That Tunes. Actually, last night we did play the intro of a song, and you had to pick what it was. We've done that with TV shows. We've done it with movies. We've done all kinds of creative things. We've had people come dressed in costume, and it didn't have to be anything elaborate. It was anything they had around. We played a game where there was a list of things, and everybody had to be on the speaker, couldn't be on the headset. And then you name something and say, okay, find something in your house that you would never part with. And then you'd see people from the Zoom screens, everybody's just like rushing off the screen. And then you could hear all kinds of noise. And then all of a sudden somebody comes back and holds it up to the camera. Here, I got this. We had a lot of fun with that. We developed what our show on Food Network would be, what it would be called, and what our famous foundational recipe would be on the show. Some people actually did a live demonstration in the show, and we recorded that.
Nice.
A lot of fun. I mean, these are the things you have to do because people want to feel connected, and they are part of a team, and they want to laugh with each other. They want to celebrate each other. They want to know that, oh, so-and-so did a great job. Let's do a shout out. Let's ring the bell when a new sale happens. Let's make sure that we celebrate the successes and also chat about other things that are going on. Do you have someone in your family that's not feeling well? Bring it up. Let's have the same kinds of conversations we would have together. So those are what we were doing to kind of keep people engaged. We're still doing them, rather, but to feel really connected to an experience and to look forward to the experience every night, and then maybe do some of the homeschooling and maybe do the homework with the kids and everything, but go into the evening with a smile on your face. And that was our goal. So, I mean, anything you guys have thought about doing with your folks that are working from home?
Well, I think you hit on something really important there, Steve. A lot of leaders might be listening to us talking right now with all the fantastic ideas that you've brought up with your staff and thinking, I'm not creative enough to come up with those ideas. Take it back to what your staff naturally do in the office and provide them a mechanism, a platform, a time of day to have those same interactions so they're not feeling like they miss it. I think one of the benefits that we haven't even thought about yet, it's just coming to mind, is we're probably actually increasing productivity because those conversations were happening probably 2 employees at a time. during the workday. Every morning I would have, I've got a small team of 4, and as each person would come in, they'd spend their time checking in with everyone. And the next person would come in, they'd spend their time checking in with everyone. Well, if you have that virtual check-in where you do talk about what you had for dinner last night, how well you slept, any funky dreams you may have had, you're having that conversation once with a team of 4, and then when it's over, they're energized, they're invigorated, and they can get on with the business of the day.
Yeah, true. By the way, if anybody listening wants to know any of the things that we did in our organization, just send me an email at s.pappas, s.pappas, at outlook.com, and I'd be happy to send you the list of all of the games and all of the get-togethers and all of the fun stuff that we did, including the links and everything else. We've actually written it down, and we've shared it with some of our customers who have asked us, because we've included customers in these too. We've included partners, and we just say, hey, if you want to stop by, it's open. We can hold as many as you want, but if you have some time, stop by at 4:45 and take part in it. We give away virtual prizes, but it's still more bragging rights. And we've had people take us up on it. We had some partners stop by last week, and they just said it was the most fun they've had because your partners, your customers, they're all going through the same things. And since we talk about customer experience all the time on this podcast, the experience is what you have to think about. And those are the things that we always try to keep at the forefront of our mind, is not only the customer's experience and your partners, but it starts with your employee experience and the fact that you as a manager want to give them a great experience so that they could say, hey, I had a good day today. And if you can make that infectious and pass it on to your customers and your partners and your dealers, your distributors, whatever you have, make it infectious and pass it on to everybody. So
one of the other things that I was doing with my staff that I got a lot of positive feedback on was just checking in with them on a one-on-one basis. I was predominantly using Skype because that was an easy way of getting a hold of my staff. Especially the call center staff, you could send that message and they could get to you in between calls or while they're on hold waiting for something, because they're very good at multitasking. I think a lot of them just really appreciated hearing from someone at a higher level of management that just wanted to check in, see how they were doing, see how they were feeling, and, give them that opportunity to tell me anything that was on their mind. Because, our staff, especially trying to wrap their heads around why they were being sent home so quickly and what's going on in the world, how they're having to be strong for their families and strong for their customers. They need some place to just be able to just give that exhale so that they can in turn be that strong person, be that source of strength or sunshine for their customers. One of the biggest inputs to the customer experience is the performance of the employee and how they're feeling. And that was just a real simple thing. I was picking, I had a large team that I was trying to get settled into a work from home environment. I would pick 5 to 10 employees a day and just send them a quick pop-up and see how they were doing. I might spend 30 minutes on it. It wasn't a huge commitment of time for me, but it was a huge investment in my staff.
That's great. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So actually, it kind of brings up another point. It's when people are moving to a work from home reality, there's a need for being able to separate work from home. And that is where I think the lines are being a little blurred. I've noticed that people are feeling exhaustion. They're feeling fatigued because they're playing teacher in parts of the day. They're doing a full-time job. But then the same things they did at night, whether it's making the meal or other catch up with chores or things around the house. None of that has stopped. It's still there. So I guess the other thing we probably need to impress upon folks is that just because everybody's moved from work from home, you've got to make sure your employees are able to separate the work from home, and that they, when they clock in, that they're clocking in for work, but when it's time to clock out, they can shut it off. And then they could concentrate on the family. They could concentrate on the regular things as if they were commuting back home or taking public transportation back home at the end of their shift. So any thoughts there? Because it seems like mentally separating work from home is important, because people seem to be blurring the lines these days too. And maybe they're working more than they should, but you don't want them to burn out, because you want them to be happy employees, and you want them at some point, maybe they'll be coming back to the office, or you want them just to be happy employees, giving them good experiences, not making them feel like, God, I worked around the clock and I didn't get anywhere. So any thoughts on how to separate the actual work from home, or how you've told your employees to do it?
One of my favorite tips actually comes from my husband. He has been working from home at this point 8 weeks, but he's done work from home ad hoc the entire time we've been together. And whenever he is working from home, he still gets dressed for work. And I think that is a big tip. It is something that I've talked to my home-based staff for, at this point, 15 years, is to still create that habit of doing something different, that I am getting up, getting ready, mentally preparing myself by physically preparing myself to go to work. And then when the work day is over, changing out of my work clothes into my home clothes, and using that as a big mental separator by how you're presenting yourself even at home.
Yeah, that's probably a good thought. I don't think I've changed my routine either. Now that I think about it, now that you mentioned it, I just think it's probably routine and habit over so many years. But I wonder if people are doing that. I wonder how many people are actually doing that, and how many are just keeping the sweats on and the bunny slippers, and then heading to the computer and logging in and getting online. I wonder what percentage that is.
Well, I don't know the math, but if Facebook is any indicator, a large percentage of them are in sweatpants and bunny slippers. I'm seeing a lot of those posts.
All right. Well, we'll take that as a non-scientific stat, that the majority of people are in bunny slippers and sweats out there. Not that there's anything wrong. We don't have any problems with sweats and bunny slippers, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, some people know how to make sweats really work. I don't. And
I'm a leggings girl. I got to admit, I love the leggings.
And I don't own any bunny slippers, in case anybody gets any ideas out there, and I get some weird mail back. Steve, we can imagine you in bunny slip. No, you can't.
Well, now I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
Yeah. They won't get much use, but I'll just keep them handy so you could see them. I'll hold them up to the camera now and then. See, Angela, I still have those bunny slippers. Let's, maybe what we could do to kind of close this episode out is think about the future. What's the next reality? What's the new reality going to look like? Are people going to be more virtual? Do you think people going to go back to the office? I have to think that now that school is getting closer to closing here in the U.S., that chances are a lot of people will not want to go back until school starts up again in September or August. But do you think that people will be going to the office in the same numbers as pre-COVID-19?
No, I don't think we will. I think we're going to have to look at our office spaces. And as a lot of companies had been saving on overhead by bringing their employees in tighter and tighter, I think some of it's going to have to be relaxed. I think our floor plans are going to have to change so that we can provide the opportunity to socially distance in our offices. I think there's going to be a rotation of employees. You work from home for so many days, you come in for so many days. I think a lot of companies are going to have to figure out how to do a blended approach, which quite honestly, my employees were always asking for. They wanted that ability to work from home some days and then still have that time where they're coming into the office and reconnecting. So I think it's going to be good for us. I just don't know exactly how we're going to be able to get that done in some industries.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree that the change is going to be a higher percentage virtual. So I think we will have hybrid work from homes, whether they be some point in, some point home. I think we'll also see more gig from homes. People working in the gig economy there will be an increase in jobs. And I'm already seeing a lot of those on Indeed and various other job boards. I'm seeing a higher number of work from home now, obviously for the reasons today, but I have a feeling that that's going to extend beyond. And I guess the last thing is social distancing going to change how we approach each other? Is social distancing going to be something that stays in the back of our minds for the next few years? And is it going to change the warmth and the touch of experience? And I guess that's probably the last thought I'll pose to you is if it's going to, make society just a little more standoffish.
Well, I think I'll challenge you this weekend then, if you haven't watched it, to go watch the movie Demolition Man. Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. And in their version of the future, you no longer greeted each other with any touch sort of greeting. And that movie was, oh my gosh, late 80s, early 90s? I'd have to look it up to know for sure, but in that general era, that we were going to greet each other differently. And I think that will be one of the things coming out of this. We will find that our social greetings will be less touch-oriented.
That's an interesting thing for our listeners to just think about. How will social change? Forget the distancing, but how will the word social may change things in the future. And by the way, I do remember Demolition Man, that Taco Bell all restaurants were called Taco Bell because they won the franchise wars.
Yes, they did. And I was working at Taco Bell when that movie came out.
Okay, so it hits home with you. All right, well, on that, I'm going to say thank you, Angela. It was great to have you on our first co-hosted episode, and I hope to be able to have these kind of conversations with you a lot more in the future. And God knows I like the fact that I'm not talking to myself only, even though listeners are listening to me. I still am talking just into a mic, not to another warm body on the other end that can talk back.
Thank you for bringing me along, Steve. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
I think so, too. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Science of CX. You've been listening to The Science of CX. My name is Steve Pappas. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. And if you have, the highest compliment that you can give us is to subscribe, rate, and review The Science of CX. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.